All right, looks like we're live. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. I almost said good morning because it's here, Los Angeles, 12:10. So we just passed the afternoon mark. But yeah, good afternoon from Los Angeles, and then Steve is in the Denver market. So, good afternoon to everyone. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Check out the stream today. Today I'm with someone who I've known for about a year and a half now. Someone that I've become good friends with, and Steve's just an awesome dude. He has a YouTube channel and a podcast, and a podcast as well, and they're both called Rideshare Rodeo, I believe. And he also has a really good website, UberLiftDrivers.com. He talks about gig news, the nuts and bolts of the gig economy. Especially when there's legislation or just the different types of regulations that affect the gig economy. But yeah, Steve, I know that a lot of people know you here, but also a lot of people don't. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, so he got it right. It is Rideshare Rodeo. You can find it on any podcatcher, or you can even find it at the website he mentioned, uberliftdrivers.com. You can find the podcast. Um, so you can check that all out. The uberliftdrivers.com has been going 5 years. Rideshare Rodeo has been going um, just over 2. And my YouTube channel is about to hit a year in about 3 weeks. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, but so far, what's up, Freestyle? What's up, Roy? What's up, Brandy? And I
Yeah,
think I
we got
saw
a lot of
somebody else
people
in
in the
here too.
chat.
And what's up, Pete? Um,
Brandy in the house. We got Pete in the house. We got Rideshare Roadie Steve in the house. We got Freestyle in the house. We got Roy in the house. He's always up to no good, that guy. Laura, what's going on, Laura? Thanks for stopping by. All right. So yeah, today, we're talking about a really important topic, because I know, when we've talked offline, you've mentioned that, or even on your channel, you've mentioned that, a lot of big chain locations are closed because they can't get enough staffing, and I haven't seen that here in my market, but I've been seeing a lot of now hiring signs, and there's been a movement, if you will, in the past year or so, kind of like, it almost seems like an after effect of the pandemic, but a lot of politicians and all these people are blaming, saying, hey, people are too lazy to work. But I kind of wanted to talk about that with you today. What are some of the things that you're seeing in your market in regards to unemployment, people quitting their jobs?
as far as like if you threw the numbers book at me like they do on the news, if you said, "Hey, in Denver, the unemployment is at this and it was at this," none of that really matters to me. I mean, I can look at that and say, "Okay, that might matter in some scenarios," but in my day-to-day life, it seems like everybody's out there doing something and working and going and they're back to full life. However, everywhere I go seems to be severely understaffed. Severely. I know that you don't suffer this as much in LA. I know you have a lot more overcrowding. um yeah, like we're 800,000 people, and we used to, like, I think it was 10-15 years ago, we were about half of that. So in the like we've grown like 300,000-400,000 in the past like 10-15 years here in Denver. So we've got a huge population too, but for some reason, man, I don't know if it's pandemic life or what. I don't really equate it fully to the laziness factor. I just think that people have had it with bosses. If there's a way around a boss, they're going to take it.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people learned that during the pandemic when they didn't have a choice and they went to, let's say, delivering food and found out even at its height, they could get paid a lot of money in the beginning. And then as it went down, maybe some people even bounced out of it, but still said, wait a minute, I don't want to go back to a boss though. There's got to be other things like this, you know?
do, do you think that, if it wasn't for the gig economy, people would be going back to W-2s? Because it almost seems like a lot of people got a taste of the gig economy, and they're like, you're right. You're like, I don't want to go back to the W-2. I don't want to have a boss. Do you think we'd still be in this position if gig economy didn't exist?
Um, No, I mean, maybe not as bad anyway, but I think, yeah, in some ways, yes, because some people I think just got their first taste. We're also used to getting out of high school, working through high school, and then we're used to getting through high school. And if you go to college, that's cool. If you go to a trade school, that's cool. But if you just go right into the workforce, it's almost like right away, if you go out of high school or you go to college and then out, it's almost like, you know, you're going right into the workforce, and you never really, nobody ever says to you, hey, you're going to get a 2-year break here. It's like this pandemic did something none of us were ready for. Like, hey, stay at home, you're locked down. Wait, what? And then there was money coming in. Then there was this to a lot of people, and this and that and the other, and all of us, these even the loans for small businesses. I mean, they're crazy how many loans they dished out for small businesses. If you want to talk about the UAP money and stuff, that's one thing, but it's a whole nother thing what they were doing with those PPO loans. You know what I mean? They were just literally, there has never been a time in America when you could just say, hey, I have an idea for a business. How much do you need? This much. And they just mailed it to you.
Wasn't the PPP loan limited to $10,000?
Yeah, but you could apply for it 4 different times through the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that means you could have 4 different, or even you could re-up the investment on one business or start another. I mean, and your businesses didn't have to succeed. That's the other thing. They're forgivable to a degree if you like completely bomb too. So it's almost like if you have the smarts to say, well, I'm not even going to really try this. I'll just say I'm starting an ice cream business, resale ice cream. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, well, did you take a $10,000 loan? Yeah. Okay. It's like, every other time on earth, you would owe that money plus interest. And now it's like you might not even owe that money.
Yeah.
This is not what the American economy is set up to be. And I think it puts some real holes in us. I mean, like, it's sad to go to usdebtclock.org, but if you haven't been there in a while or you don't know about it, I suggest everybody go check out that site and just watch it for 2 minutes. Because I mean, you won't get bored. Just watch it for 2 minutes, take in the whole site and what those numbers are, and watch how fast they're moving. We've never been in this bad of a position, and I'm not getting political here. I'm just being honest. The United States is in some sad state right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I know the PPP loan was supposed to be, mainly for businesses, but when I heard companies like I think it was either Ford or GM take out the loan, and also the Los Angeles Lakers, like, what the hell are you guys doing, man? So you guys don't need that money.
Well, I think those were based on employee retention models. Those were to like restaurants and stuff, mom and pop restaurants,
right,
and bars were supposed to take those out to be able to cover their payroll, to keep their people on, and to try and keep those people off of the UAP money, the unemployment stuff. But at the same time, there was a way to apply for the UAP if you were only working part-time. So if you were 25 hours at a bar or a restaurant, you were able to still take on the UAP money, which in many cases paid more than you made before the pandemic started. Now you're getting that plus the PPP money from your position where you're part-time, and you don't have to go in for those hours. I think that it really, obviously we're not prepared for a pandemic. That's clear. But I'm just throwing a number out here. It's going to take years to kind of get to the bottom of this, but I would say probably 8 out of 10 people were misusing funds, or taking them where they probably shouldn't have, or at least taking them way longer than they should have. You know what I mean? Like, this was meant as just like unemployment, it was meant as a temporary boost to help you get through something really bad. But I think a lot of people got into a comfortable position with it and just said, I'll just take this. This is more than I made before. It's supposed to be a stopgap. Yeah.
And Roy, brought up a good point here, and that's one of the things that I wanted to transition into, was that he said between the lazy people, the government giving people stuff, and the businesses treating employees like crap, people don't want to work. I think the people who don't want to work are kind of in a minority, especially if you're living in a big city like Los Angeles, New York, or I would even argue Denver. It's not as expensive as LA, New York, but it's still expensive enough to where you can only max out your credit cards for so long. It's like you can't go long without working. Do you think that some people are like, what, screw it, I'm just gonna live off my credit cards, and for as long as they can? Do you think they've adopted that mentality?
Oh yeah. And when David Pickerel and this is before Para, when he was autonomy.jobs, and we were doing things to help people get through this in the beginning, and that's how we met, to be honest, like, I think that there is, John, you and I have talked about this. There's a housing crash coming in California.
Oh
There's
yeah.
probably one coming to the whole country shortly. But I think that beyond that, there's another thing that I've not seen taken into account at all that worries me, which is bankruptcy. I think we're about to see a ton of bankruptcies.
Yep.
Because all of these government loans, they're not protected like student loans and stuff. It's not like if you declare bankruptcy, you're going to be held liable for these. Anything that happened during the pandemic, if you declare bankruptcy tomorrow, you're free and clear. So I think some people are just milking that to the very end. And then I think we'll see that wave of a lot of people are going to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah, exactly. And you would think that some people would have learned from the 2008 crash, but I guess they didn't.
Well, they did, because in the 2008 crash, you learned that if you were losing all of your properties and everything was going upside down, you learned that, well, if I just kind of wait and, like you said, max out all my credit cards, do this, that, the other, then declare bankruptcy, you actually were put into a better position than you were in before, because post bankruptcy, credit cards want to start working with you again, because they know for 7 more years or whatever it is, 8 or whatever, you can't declare it again. So for 8 years, they've got you on the ringer. So they start coming in at these small amounts and stuff. But also at the same time, if you're in a good place and you declare bankruptcy, and then you take on a couple $500 credit cards, you can rebuild your credit back to a 650 plus in 5-6 months. But if you don't declare bankruptcy and you've done all the things that have been happening, good luck ever getting back to that 650 plus. So it's almost like it's a forced bankruptcy. I don't know. The whole way the money was distributed during the pandemic really, I think, messed everything up. I mean, obviously, man, we knew we'd see political powers fighting over it, but nobody agreed on anything that was ever done during the pandemic. If you found something where you liked it and you're like, I like that, I like how they did that, you would find 10 other people saying, no, that sucks, and here's why. So nobody was on the same page at all.
Yeah, I think I'm from the opinion that the money they printed out during the pandemic, during lockdowns, when they first started for the first few months, I thought that was necessary because most people were at home, and not everyone was able to work from home. A lot of people got laid off. I think the money then was necessary. Was it ideal? No, but now, not or whenever vaccine came out and business started opening it back up, I didn't really agree with money being handed out, because people could still work, but they chose not to. Someone made a good comment here. Oh yeah, Laura said, plus I have health issues, so it helps with a flexible schedule. A lot of people, when I talk to the drivers in my market and things like that, they say, what, I've either mental health issues, like I'm still struggling from the pandemic in terms of anxiety, depression, or whatever, or some people have physical health issues. Do you think that's also playing a role in people kind of going towards the gig economy and not picking up W-2 jobs again?
I think that honestly, I have really been, I'm gonna put this into a little bit different of a term. So yeah, yes, to answer your question a little bit, because I think that even now, who was I saying this to the other day? Maybe it was Lisa or something, that I was in the grocery store and I had not seen so many people masking in probably a year.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like last week. And I was like, what's going on, dude? Why does everybody have a mask on again? I was kind of freaked out by it. Like, why, dude? Why is everybody wearing masks again? Though we're past this. Guess what? COVID's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It's
COVID's just a part of life now, guys. It's here. And it's died down a lot. That's the other great thing. It's not taking out the masses of people that it was. So, I mean, it's just something we need to learn to deal with. It's whether you're vaxxed or not vaxxed or whatever, you're a lot more you're probably, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, knock wood, but you're probably not going to die if you get COVID, except for in extreme situations, and part of that being elderly and stuff. And even then, I don't know. They have a way of getting around it now. It's not even new solutions. It's just that when it first came out, it was just knocking off the older people like left and right. And so we were trying to be careful. Like, no matter what you think of the news, if this is something I think everybody can relate to, When all of the pandemic was happening in April, May, June of 2020, if you were watching any news, this wasn't fake news of any kind either, and you were watching New York City, you would hear sirens going off the whole time. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was ambulances trying to get to every house in New York all the time. Just boom, boom, 24 hours a day. People, and then when they'd get there, often they were dead or whatever. And it's, I mean, I think that it's like a perfect storm type scenario. We got a lot of problems right now. We got mass inflation. We don't seem to have any fixes going on, as far as I can tell. You know what I mean? Like, we're still fighting over oil money. To me, that's pretty disgusting. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we can't get it from where we want. We're not going to pump our own oil. So let's go down to let's go to Iran and Venezuela. I don't see how that's a good solution in any way. But a lot of bad things came out of this pandemic. Like, I'm even going to point out something else and I know that people might say one doesn't relate to the other, but it does. We pulled out of Afghanistan at a time when I won't comment whether I think we should have ever gone in or not, but look at how far Afghanistan women had come in like 30, 40 years. And literally they got pushed back 90 years. So like, they were going to school, they were getting degrees, they were all kinds of good things. And now women have to just shut up and go back to the old way that Afghanistan was. So, I mean, if anything, man, maybe we're not as bad off as some other countries. I think everybody's a little screwed. I think the whole world's a little screwed because of this pandemic. And I don't just mean the people we've lost. I mean, like, where we're at and how we're going to get out of this. We're out of the pandemic part now, but how are we going to solve all these financial problems? Because they're big. They're real big.
And Laura mentioned that I saw a video that said a lot of fast foods will be closing their dining rooms permanently. I don't know about the fast foods, but this morning I heard about Starbucks. I don't know if you heard about this, Steve. But in my market, they're actually closing down 6, 7 locations in areas that have become, or the crime rate has increased, mainly downtown LA, Hollywood, and a couple locations, Santa Monica. And Santa Monica is actually a really nice area, but there's always been. I used to work down there. I used to work at the Toyota dealership down there in Santa Monica, and that was 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, and there was homeless. There was always a homelessness population there, but I guess now it's just gotten so bad that customers and workers don't feel safe, so they're closing down. And me and Hannibal a few weeks ago, we talked about the mental health situation, or the mental health repercussions after the pandemic. Do you think that mental health has also played into people saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to take a break from the W-2 workforce right now, just kind of focus on myself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, I think the Starbucks thing too is, if you were watching a couple weeks back, they were starting to go to I can't remember where it was I was watching this, but they're starting to move towards like unions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's not a good move. And what you're talking about plays into exactly what I hate about unions. Okay, so that's probably related to unions. Why Starbucks is like, well, we'll just close the lobby. Enough. If everybody keeps this kind of stuff up, we're going to have a society where nobody interacts. We got to start getting through this. And I know we're what I would call past the pandemic. Okay, we're over that. Now we're to this new pandemic of Karens and just jacket. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Everybody seems to have a real attitude. You know what I mean? Like, and just things are just weird. People don't interact. You barely smile at people, because I think that the masking even took away smiles. So now when I see people there, it used to be all smiles at like my grocery store, let's say. Mm-hmm. Everybody was like in a good mood. Now everybody's like in a pissy mood. It's no social distancing. We're not concerned about that anymore. We're just all mad at each other. Yeah. And none of us did anything to anybody. So I don't know what that's all about either.
Every time I go somewhere, everyone's just looking down on their phone. You don't even see their faces half the time. And I think we were already there before the pandemic. I think, cell phone technology, we're already there before the pandemic. Once the pandemic started, just kind of added another layer to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I felt too. And yeah, I mean, of course, the screen time was an issue, but I used to refer to my son having a perfect example. I used to refer to my son having um, screen time issues before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I had to let him have as much screen time issue as he wanted because that's all they had for interaction. Now, on his own, he's gotten sick of screen time and is taking on a job. He's in his job right now. You know what I mean? He loves going to work. So, I'm good for him, man. He's, I was concerned about coming out of it. I think it made him not, I think it made him not like all that stuff and kind of, or not, he still likes it, but his friends and him used to game like 16 hours a day sometimes during the pandemic, and I'd let it go on the weekends or when school things were upside down. But, now I don't really have to say anything to him about that kind of stuff. He's got it all under control now. So
We got Tony in the house.
what up, Tony?
By the way, shout out to Max. He seems like a really good kid. I say seems because I just haven't met him in person yet, but I will. Hopefully, once I'm down there in Denver. What I was thinking?
You will.
I was thinking. I'm like, damn, I'll be in Denver next Sunday. It's crazy. Yeah, it's it's crazy.
2 weeks from Sunday, or wait, no,
no, next Sunday, because we're already 13th. This Sunday will be the 17th, so 17 plus 7 is 24.
Oh, okay.
So next Sunday.
Okay. Right, crazy. So like 11 days.
Yeah.
12 days, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to count down for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to meeting you, Max, Tony, and everyone else in Denver.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. But back to the topic. Yeah, there's all kinds of comments here. Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to preface this by saying that, Steve and I, neither of us are medical health professionals. So, we're not giving out health advice. We're just two random dudes on the internet. So yeah, don't take our words as medical advice. But Laura says here, people who are so afraid of that or should make sure that their immune systems are better. That is a true way to fight it. And, I agree with it because in the sense that, COVID is not the only disease or illness out there. There's several. It's almost like, when the pandemic started, everything else we forgot about, and the only virus out there was COVID. And rightfully so, because it was new. We didn't know much about it. But now, and again, we're not medical health professionals, but it seems like the latest strain isn't as strong or as deadly or fatal as the one that originally came out. So as long as you're sleeping, as long as you're eating healthy, as long as you're trying to lose weight, and then if you have pre-existing conditions, it's like if you do something about it, then you don't have much to worry about. And again, I know I'm walking a fine line here because we're not medical health professionals, but that's just my personal opinion about it.
Yeah, we're not medical professionals, but we're just giving our advice on what we see in everyday life.
Our observations.
Yeah, observations on the pandemic and post-pandemic. And the same person who you pulled up for a comment, Laura, before, has another one here about globalists.
Yeah, let me see.
And so that globalists want what is it? Okay, here it is.
There it is.
Yeah, that's what the globalists want people to call me a conspiracy. Yeah, see, here's why, though, because everybody got on the internet and made it sound like exactly what John just said. We're not medical experts, but we're giving an observation here. Most people didn't do that. Most people got on the internet and started saying, listen, this is BS and this, and don't do this. Drink bleach. Drink bleach. That'll help you. Yeah. I'm not getting political. I'm just saying, like, I sure hope nobody drank bleach.
Yeah.
But you never know. But again, there were different solutions. They just, this is why all the social media platforms got pretty hardcore on like banning you too if you were doing this stuff, because I get why they didn't want people putting out misinformation. But here's the problem is that we're entitled to have opinions. Everything should have been, I think it should have just been stamped, this is an opinion on COVID, not a channel ripped down, even if the person forgot to say it. Because here's the thing, the CDC was only a perspective on the pandemic, believe it or not. You can say that they know everything, but they don't. The CDC made hundreds or thousands of errors during this. They went through 3 different directors. They had to fire people who were like starting to say, I can't participate in telling these lies anymore. And this is all starting to come out. I mean, this is a problem, you know. And then they put that Rachel or whatever her name is in charge, and ever since then, she's just been a team player for whatever they want her to say. You know, so it's like the CDC was wrong 100 times, but they kept giving us directions, and everybody's like, "Don't listen to YouTube, listen to the CDC." Why? They were wrong every time too. And they were going back. I mean, your state was the worst, John. Your state just literally could. Your state was flipping a quarter every Monday and saying mask or no mask.
Yeah, I didn't agree with them because like there was a point in time where numbers started going down, and they're like, you know what, everyone can take their mask off. 2 weeks later, I'm like, dude, that's not a good idea. And like, oh, you know what, 2 weeks later, put them back on. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that to begin with. But again, you know, I don't want to get into the politics of it.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm just saying that everybody seemed to have horrible viewpoints, even those. If anything, I would say that it should be an eye opener for people to start not saying the government's wrong, but at least do some research and more base your decisions on what you think, and maybe take some government input. But don't always think that if the government puts something out, it's the right thing to do. Like, for example, I had to call CVS Pharmacy today. While I was on hold, it said, do you now know that CVS, and it's been doing this for a while, offers the COVID vaccine? Okay, yeah, I do. Shut up, machine. Like, I hate this. But then it said but it had an additional part I hadn't heard. Do you know that we give the COVID vaccine, and we do 15 other vaccines? Press 1 if you're interested. I wanted to press 1 and say I want to come in for all 16 today.
Just to be able to speak to someone,
yeah,
right?
Just pull my arm up and say, okay, look, just find some areas and just jab me 16 times, dude. I don't even care if they're the same one. Just give them to me. Go. Like, I just couldn't believe it. They're like, do you know that we now have 15? It was like they turned COVID into like a propaganda. We have COVID and 15 other vaccines. Really? I'm coming in now. Like,
say no more. Sign me up.
I almost wanted to go in with a GoPro and just tell them, yeah, I heard on the message you have 15 vaccines. I'll take all of them. And just watch the pharmacist's reaction. Like, well, it's probably unsafe to take more than one in a day. I'd be like, oh, I don't care. The one's unsafe. So let's just go for it. Give me all 15. Like,
Roy says if anyone took that bleach comment or drink bleach comment serious, then let them. Yeah, the thing is, I think that's why a lot of these channels were getting, you know, suspended or banned or whatever, because a lot, yeah, there were opinions, but at the same time, a lot of people were just taking them, you know, as gospel, or they're, you know, taking it word for word. So I think that, you know, that was the reason why.
Yeah, Roy, to hit on that, I mean, I agree with you in a little bit. Some Darwinism is needed for sure. like Bill Burr does. If you guys don't know who the comedian Bill Burr is, I suggest you watch some of Bill Burr, because he's got some great stuff pre-pandemic, even on how we need different ways that he had of sinking our population some. Like, he said that we should fill up every cruise ship with free rides, and then as soon as they're out in international waters, bomb them. So that's a way to get rid of 400 to 4,500 people per boat at once. You know, we could take out, because we are getting overpopulated, you know? So it's, I mean, we gotta start taking things serious. And then, yeah, if somebody took the reading the bleach thing seriously and drank it, I get that seems a little overboard. That seems like that one should have red flagged you no matter who you are. But all the other things, put that one aside. To be honest, all the other things, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here, are the things that work if you get COVID, especially before we really knew. It's funny that a lot of the stuff that you remember when Joe Rogan got it and he said, throw the kitchen sink at it. I don't know if you remember that. Joe Rogan got, the first time he got COVID, he went to his doctor, and his doctor gave him the horse tranquilizer and this and that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And all, and it was like 7 things. And he listed them all. And he said, listen, if you get COVID, just go to your doctor and say you want these 7 things. You'll be fine in 3 days. And the media got pissed, dude, because he was spot on right. That worked. That got rid of COVID in like 99% of cases.
Well, the thing is that worked for him. We don't know if it will work for everyone else. And that's
we know it. We know it worked for a lot of people, though. A lot of these people that they were is intubating or incubating or whatever it is. So a lot of these people they were doing that to were given this treatment. The same people that they were diagnosing to ICU were given this treatment, and they were walking out in 2 days. A lot of ICU patients were dying in ICU.
Yeah.
because that was just a way of like, shoving a breathing apparatus down their throat and letting a machine take over. I am somebody who believes in the body can do a lot more than you believe. The body can take care of itself on a lot of levels. If like, I don't know, like if you live out in the woods, you probably get bit by things that if some of us city folk got bit by, but we'd have like a big welt on our arm or whatever. But if you live out there, you start developing a level of like a layer of dirt, of grime on yourself. Even if you shower, you're like a farmer, right? You get a level of dirt and grime. Spiders and stuff don't want to bite through that, so they don't bother with you. But somebody like you and I come in and, we just went and had like tacos, and then we go out there and they're like, this guy smells like a taco, I'm gonna bite him. Like, it's like all of a sudden a brown recluse bit us, but he left the farmer alone. It's just, it's just paying attention to surroundings and stuff. I don't know. Our people, I mean, I guess getting back to the point though, are people like not going back to work? Is this the Great Recession? I don't know, man. It's hard to tell because it's also the biggest inflation we've ever seen. It's also the highest gas prices we've ever seen. I mean, are people not going back to work because they're like, dude, okay, if I go to work, I'm going to get my gas money and I still won't be able to afford the groceries that we barely got before. I'm almost better not going to work. So I don't know if it's a lazy, I mean, I'm sure there are some cases where it's lazy. I'm sure. But I think there were cases of I'm not going to work because I'm lazy or, I'm entitled or all this crap before the pandemic too. There were people who always weren't going to work or whatever. Just looking around that and trying to find ways. I mean, I was just watching this, what was it, Carly B or whatever her name is?
The rapper?
And her husband.
Cardi B, yeah.
And her boyfriend or whatever it is, they gave their, I just saw today on the news, I just saw that they gave their 5-year-old child, they gave her $50,000 in cash for her fourth birthday. Okay, so her fourth birthday,
they put it in the 529.
Dude, she's holding 5 10 stacks.
Yeah.
5 $10,000 10 stacks like this and going, okay. And then it's like she finds this like shiny little object on the chair and she's like looking at this and he's like, no, it's over here. And she's like, okay. She's like interested in the piece of trash that was on the floor.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we get, come on. Really? Like, you don't think that kid's going to be messed up? That kid's 4 and just got 50 grand.
I don't think they can even comprehend it at that age. It could have been just a post to go. I mean, not that they need to go viral. They're already really famous, but it could have been
it's for them. It's not for the kid.
Right.
It's for them to show their friends what they did.
Because the kid doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, but I mean, these are the problems. These are the weak people that are going to come up in this society.
I mean, the financial savvy in me says that I hope they put that 50 grand at 529. So at least the kid doesn't have to worry about, college tuition later.
But the realist in you knows they didn't, right?
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what a 529 is, it's basically it's a education savings account where, the money that you put in there grows tax free until your kid is ready to go to college.
Yeah,
it's a really good resource for us folks who aren't rich.
So I think that the answer to this is there's a mixing of a lot of things going on right now, and you have some people with fear, you have some people with pre-existing conditions who I still think maybe they shouldn't be as worried as they were before, but they're still worried. Of course, they're worried because this could be them. They could be getting sick, and I mean, I got asthma back at the start of the pandemic. I don't know if I really did. I don't know because I thought I had COVID and this was June 2020. And to this day, they still wouldn't play it that way. They played it that I had my asthma back and they gave me 2 steroid shots while I was in there. They gave me, my blood O2 was at like 78. And I was like, C+, that's all right. And they're like, yeah, 75's dead. So it's not all right.
Yeah, I think if it's below 90, then it gets scary.
Right. And so I had to stay in there till it was back up to 85. And then I had to come back in the next day because I went to, and I called them first. I went to one of those all night medical centers. What do you call them? Intensive care or whatever.
Yeah.
So I went
I
to
believe
one of
so.
those instead because this was, remember, June 2020. That's when you were hearing about people going into the emergency room. And if you didn't walk in there with COVID, you walked out with it. You know what I mean? Like if you went into
Hmm.
the emergency room in June and you were waiting in an average waiting room, most likely you were going to catch COVID. So I tried to avoid that by going to intensive care. And I called them ahead of time. I said, I think I have COVID. Are you busy? It's one by my house. And they said, no. I said, can I come in? They said, yeah. And they said, under 85, we're supposed to call the hospital and have you ambulanced over to the ICU. But if we can get you up back above 80 and feeling better, we can let you go home and then we can do a follow up tomorrow.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was definitely like, I feel like they were helping me out by, cause I was like, I used to have asthma as a kid. They're like, that's it. You got asthma again. It was like, it was that kind of thing too, was the timing was weird. And I was like, okay, wait, I haven't had any kind of, and they're like, here's an inhaler. Here's all the, cause inhalers, we already know this too. Inhalers were helping people with COVID. Even if you never had asthma, an albuterol inhaler was helping you during COVID if you had it.
Yeah, for me, I remember, those, especially when the lockdowns first started. I had never been an anxious person, but I was so stressed out and I was so anxious that because one of the common symptoms of anxiety is that it affects your breathing. So I was not having trouble breathing, but I definitely felt a change in my breathing pattern. So I'm like, you know what, I have COVID. I got to go to the hospital. So I went there and they're like, no, dude, you're just anxious. So they gave me some type of medication to calm me down. But yeah, then I realized that I just gotta take it easy. So
They're
yeah,
like, here's a bunch of Xanax, John. Just settle down.
Don't get your hyena punch.
But I mean, but
But
good. You didn't have it, but
I eventually got it. I got it 2020 of Thanksgiving, and luckily for me, it wasn't too bad. I didn't have to be hospitalized, but it lingered for a while. I think I had symptoms for like about a month and a half. Fatigue was one of them. For the very last 2 weeks, I had trouble getting out of bed. I had a cough. So yeah, my family definitely went through it. Um, but yeah, again, back to me talking about how anxious I got. Again, this is just as bad as it was physically. I think it also had a bigger impact mentally. And this is one of the things that Hannibal and I talked about a few weeks ago here on the channel, is that how do we we've like you mentioned earlier, we're kind of growing away from the physical aspect of the pandemic, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of mentally. Do you think people are eventually maybe in a year and a half, they're going to be ready saying, hey, you know what, I can no longer max out my credit cards. I don't have anything else. I have to go back to work. Do you think people will eventually go back to work, or what else do you think will happen?
I mean, what's the other solution? I'm very curious to know what the other solution is. I already don't know how the people
Be
who aren't
homeless?
back to work are getting by though. Yeah, but I mean, like those who don't, who know in their head they have kids, they've got
Yeah.
along forever working. Let's say that both people in the both the husband and wife or husband and husband or whatever is going on in the household, both had like a job and a half. Let's say both were working a 40-hour and a 20-hour job, and then all this happened. I don't think people are going to be rushing back to killing themselves to just get by anymore. People want something better.
Hmm.
And I think that it was a taste, one of the biggest problems I think with the pandemic, and maybe it was meant to be, I don't know, is that you infused everybody with more money than they ever made. So you were giving people every week, you were paying them more to stay home than they had ever made working. Well, that's a big problem because that showed the government was able to do that. And it's like, well, if you're able to do that, why am I being paid $9 an hour? And now what have we seen? We've seen every state go up in their minimum wage, every
Hmm.
state. And I mean, some states barely budged on minimum wage by even 50 cents, whatever, over the years. Now, my son is making $17.50 an hour right now. Right now, he's working as a lifeguard, $17.50 an hour. There is no way a 15-year-old 2 years ago could have got a job at $17.50 an hour. Not a chance.
Do you think it's because they're having trouble finding a lifeguard?
Oh yeah, they've shut down some of the pools and then they consolidate the lifeguards to other pools. So we've got a bunch of public pools here in Denver and they've said we don't have enough lifeguards. Like right now, if you can pass the lifeguard test, you will get hired today by City of Denver if you go to take the test. So, I mean, the test is actually pretty hard. My son's a strong swimmer, but the test is pretty hard. Like he says, they have like 2 to 3 people come in a day, and usually all of them don't pass. There's one test about getting a cinder block out of the deep end, and it's this whole thing where it's like a little tied down too, and you got to like break some things, and it's this whole thing. And he said everybody fails that one thing, but the one thing I feel good about, I know he's probably around some people.
Here's Arthur's solution: if you can't swim, don't go to a pool.
I mean, the one thing that I like that he's telling me is that, like where he's at's pretty chill. There hasn't been like an emergency situation, but I know that one thing that we did learn about COVID, for all the stupid things that were out there, we did learn that chlorine was a major like deterrent of catching it. Even if you were just in proximity but in a pool, chlorine was helping. For whatever reason. I'm not saying drink it. I'm just saying, just being in it just somehow made you a little bit better off. Like you weren't as likely to catch COVID if you were in a pool. So I do like that that's where he is.
Roy says, if you really pay attention, if you notice most workers currently are older people, it's lazy, entitled kids that aren't working. I disagree with you. In my market, whenever I go to, from a gig or from a delivery food driver standpoint, whenever I go, I see a lot of young people. If anything, I've seen less older people working, whether it's, too physically demanding or they're concerned about catching the Rona. What have you noticed in your market, Steve?
I'd say somewhere in between what Roy said and you're saying. I'd say I see kids 14 to 17 working their butts off,
especially at Chick-fil-A.
and then I see like 45 to 65-year-olds. But I think there's a gap in there. I think the 25 to 45-year-olds are a bit lazy coming back. Not all of them. This obviously just applies to the ones that do it. It's but when you say Great Resignation, I think of, it sounds to me like the Great Resignation, like that'll lead to other even worse things. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's going to be a snapback. I don't know when it'll be. I don't know what it'll take to make it happen. But, it will happen. It's not like we're just going to let the economy die off.
Yeah, that's what Carlos. I don't know if you saw his comment or if you're responding to that, but he says, "Do you think the Great Resignation is both a societal setback and opportunity at the same time?" I think it depends on how you view it, right? So if you're being pessimistic, you're probably going to view it as a setback. But if you're someone who looks for opportunity and you're half glass, half full type of guy, then I think you're going to see it as an opportunity because, and that I'm glad you brought that up, Carlos, because that was one of the other things that I want to get into today was that we see a lot of people talking about, oh, jobs are open, people are hiring, and those tend to be the service industry jobs, because I've actually applied to jobs in sales where I wouldn't be qualified because they want long-term managerial experience, and within 24 hours I got an email the next day saying, "Hey, we regret to inform you, blah blah." So I don't think a lot of people or all these employers are willing to hire just anyone. Do you think that a lot of these job openings are in the service industry, Steve?
Oh, I know they are. The service industry is just killed, dude. I mean, even like as far as like retail, I mean, like I go down, place like a lot of cities fell to Amazon. Smaller cities fell to Amazon before the pandemic. Places were going out of business, mom and pop type places. But now, now I never saw that effect on Colfax. Now I can go down Colfax and a lot of things are shut down. I know that I go to Walgreens. I've told you this, and they're closed. I mean, Walgreens has up to 11 people in there at once, and they're just closed on a Saturday at 5 with a handwritten Sharpie note. Sorry, we don't have anybody to be here. Really? You're supposed to have 11. I get it if a few don't show up, but you don't have any scheduled. I don't know. It just seems to me like those are big signs. And I do think that going back to Carlos's comment, I do think that, yes, it is both, because I think there is a societal setback that we can't fix. And that's not being optimistic like John. It's not being pessimistic against like what John was saying. It's just being a realist that yes, we have really screwed up society. The last couple of years, we've done some major damage. I mean, I'm very happy to finally. It took till about 2 months ago before I saw my sophomore high school aged son, kind of really getting back to life. You know, it really wasn't until about the end of this year. I mean, they're still not living a life I lived growing up in high school. Maybe by next year that'll be more the case. But I mean, we're also just seeing, I mean, dude, we're talking about all these crazy things. You know, I was thinking about this today. We're talking about all these um we talk about gig workers and stuff that get killed in the line of duty or shot at, or whatever. That's going on. That's happening more at middle school or high schools than it is in the gig economy.
Mm-hmm.
There's more chance of getting shot, attacked, whatever at going to high school than there is doing the work we do. So I think it's just, to me, that's just an eye opener. That's just society right now. Society's just dangerous right now. And you got to have your guard up, and you got to be watching your six, and you got to be watching other people's six.
Yeah, and Roy over here says more people would be happy to work service jobs, but people are such a-holes nowadays. People don't want to deal with it. And yeah, as someone who, I worked in retail service for 10 years, and it's definitely challenging because, some people are okay, but a lot of people, when they don't get it, when things are out of stock or if we can't return, things because they're beyond the return policy. I've had cameras and phones thrown at me, which I've had to duck. But yeah, people, especially during the holidays, people just lose their minds whenever it comes to getting the stuff that they want. It's like, dude, we don't have it, or hey, we can't return it, or for whatever reason they just lose their minds. So yeah, from as someone who's worked in retail sales for 10 years, it can definitely challenging working with the people in retail.
Yeah. I do think there are. I'm surprised that you're getting such quick feedback on these no's, these hard no's. Like, no, we've looked at your application. No, you know what I mean? Because I
Well, a lot of it's software.
Okay, but still, I mean, like at least here in Denver and a lot of other places that I know of, I mean, people are still scrubbing for people, even in the higher up stuff. Not all of it, but in some.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, your state's got some other tricky things going on right now too that make it a little more difficult. But I don't know. I think that you stand, if you really want to go out there and get a job in something right now, you can do it. You might not make as much money working in service industry as you would, but even in that industry, you could probably go get a better living that'll be a better living in a year. Let's say if you go start getting your foot in the door now, you might be able to be a bartender. Maybe you've only been a server, and everywhere always tells you, oh, you don't have enough experience, we're not going to let you be a bartender. Maybe you go be a bartender right now just by walking in.
Right.
And again, I know we're just talking about service industry, but I'm just pointing it out that if that's your industry, which it was mine for many years, I would take advantage. Right now is the time to take advantage of that. Places
because they'll train you, right? They'll train you to be a bartender.
Oh yeah, dude. Right now, because the bartenders that have experience are quitting. Mm-hmm. I know this from bartenders I know. They're taking they're finally coming back into the workforce, or they have been, and they take a job somewhere and they're like, I don't really want to work there, but I'll work there. Well, that tells me everything I need to know. Okay, you're going to work there till you find the better job. I know how this goes. And then I have watched them do exactly that. In 6 months, work at 4 different places and then go, oh, dude, I'm finally working here. I'm good. But that means for the other time, they were just kind of passing through these other places. So and then when they leave, they're a great bartender. They leave this place understaffed. It's just a constant battle. It's people trying to work their way back into their realities, but a lot of people aren't. And those people, I don't know how they get by. I don't know how they're paying their bills. I don't know, because there's no money coming in anymore. As far as I know, there's no pandemic money. There's no extra unemployment. There's no anywhere. It is what it is now. It's back to what it was. And I don't know how you're getting by unless all these people that make it day to day were lying and they have millions of dollars each. It's like, unless they were lying about that, I don't see how they're getting by.
Sneed, he and his family own a fantastic bakery over there in Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out to the Sots Bakery, and I can't wait to visit him and his family bakery when I come to Cleveland in a couple weeks. He says I kick people out of the bakery all the time. They don't know how to function in society. They got to go not welcome. And yeah, if I wouldn't want to mess with Sneed. He's a he's a big strong dude, so I wouldn't want to mess with him. But yeah, again, it seems like I think it was bad before the pandemic, but I think after the pandemic, people just forgot how to talk to other people. They forgot to socialize.
And they get very, we all feel comfortable around our families
Mm-hmm.
and make, oh man, this day and oh this. I feel like people got maybe a little too distanced from everybody, and now they'll like take that out on the person serving them coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you need to, like, that term Karen, I think it has degrees. I think there's full blown Karen, and then I think it's like entry level Karen, mid level Karen. I think there's a lot of different Karens.
Karen Plus, Karen Ultra.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think there is. I think there is a full blown Karen, and then I think there's different degrees of it, though. That even people who weren't before the pandemic are now, and will take their life out on people who don't have anything to do with it at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the other reasons we haven't talked about yet, that could be flying under the radar is that a lot of people are starting their own businesses online. I know a lot of people who have OnlyFans accounts or their Instagram models just saying, "Hey, why are we going to go to college? Why are we going to go to get a job? We can just make money online." And obviously that has its own challenges. A lot of people, they launch an eBay store, an Amazon store. So I think that gig economy is not the only thing that people are doing. Do you think the internet has also played a role in people in the job market?
Yeah. I also just I wonder like how low people's levels are. Like, are people really going out and applying for jobs, or are they just doing it online and going, okay, we'll see if anything comes back from this? We all know that if you apply online, yeah, you might get a job, but it also, there's a thing, John, you're probably pretty familiar with this. There's a whole process that comes to applying for jobs.
Oh yeah.
Like, even if you're applying online, you apply, then you do a follow-up call a day later. Then
don't forget about the assessments. You got to take tests before you even talk to someone.
But you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole,
Yeah.
I feel like people right now are just like filling out the application form and going, well, everybody's hiring, so I'll be hired for that job. No, you're not. Again, and these are not entitled people feeling entitled. So I think we've even taken not entitled people and shoved entitlement down their throat. I don't know. I think this, obviously there wasn't a way around the beginning of this. God, there's a lot of Karen comments coming out.
I know. I'm just like, Karen. Society's going to burn. Karen.
I just looked over and I saw Karen in every field or something.
Yeah, I've been watching the chat. Go ahead, Steve.
But I think that people are just like,
oh man, we got our first mods. Can you please handle that? The spam in the chat. As soon as we mentioned Karen comments, that got popped up. Wanted to give us a variety.
See, and for all we know, like this whole Karen thing, the word Karen was put into place so that when people use it, this kind of stuff happens.
Exactly.
It's a new test to find out which of us are calling people Karens.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, I would say that, people, again, I don't know how people are getting by that aren't working. I have no clue, because I know families, I know households and stuff that are, they worked before the pandemic and they're not working yet.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to ask, but I can tell you, not even knowing these people that well, I can tell you that they're not set for life with money. I don't know how they're pulling this off.
Right.
And that makes me wonder, how are all these people pulling this off? And many of them are using services like Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash. They're using services like this. I'm like, dude, if you're broke, if you're not working, how are you using DoorDash? You can't order food.
Tony says John over there being entitled, because I was like the president. Handle this for me.
So, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm confused how this is all working anyway. Again, this could be going back to the loans. This could be going back to that. I think that a lot of people, I mean, I know that a lot of people are getting audited for PPP loans now, finally. That has not happened till now.
Oh yeah.
And now there's people coming in and going, tell me what you did with that PPP money. And they're like, oh, I didn't know how to do that.
I did food delivery for 2 days.
I didn't keep any receipts because of the pandemic. It was nobody had paper and we didn't want to touch. So
yeah,
I forget what I did with it. You know, it's like, well, what are you going to do about all these people? You can't stick them in jail.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? They're going to, I'm telling you, man, I think that just like the housing thing, I think people are, I never even hear, have you even heard bankruptcy discussed? I never hear bankruptcy even being discussed as something that we should worry about and be looking at. And I think we're about to see a ton of bankruptcies, a ton. Both business and personal stuff. I think we're about to see a ton of them. So I really don't know what to think. I don't think it's the great resignation yet, though. I do think some people want to stay home, man. I do think some people don't want anything to do with people anymore. But I think that a lot of logical people, even the ones who might want that, realize, okay, that's not reality. I got to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so at some point, I think they just don't want to go back to what they did. I don't think if they're like, well, I can go have my old job back. I don't think that looks enticing to them anymore. Even if their old job said, listen, we'll pay you $3-4 an hour more. I think that they're still so bent on that place that they're like, nah, I'm not coming back there, dude. And they're wanting something better. So I think that this is like, it's either time to give everybody a chance to like up their level one, or I don't know what's going to happen. I think people want more, though. People want more, and they're watching government spending go out of control. They're watching, companies spending all this money on autonomous and things we don't need. And yet we can't take care of our people. I mean, you're sitting, Denver's a bad city for it. You're sitting in one of the worst homeless cities in the country. I mean, you guys have a serious homeless problem. I know that there's San Francisco, LA, Denver too. We've all had big ones for a while, but you guys are sitting in a serious problem right now.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is,
and the crime rate's up. And I was just watching the thing on this. I don't know if you saw this today. They were releasing the video from the school shooting, where now they put it out and it got leaked accidentally, the internal school shooting footage.
Accidentally.
And because the police came in and saw the shooters and the police left. The police didn't even go in the school. And so it's like, what are you doing?
That wasn't a good look.
No, but I mean, like, okay, so if there's a school shooting, you're just going to show up and sit outside?
Here we go again. I'm guessing that day.
it's either a troll or Arturo. He does that kind of stuff to me. He'll like change his icon to that and like put naked HD.
I mean, it's in his name. Arturo does it all. He comments this and he spams your chat.
So Roy put police didn't get into what school? I think it was the
Uvalde.
Yes.
Texas.
Yeah. But I mean, that one had there was a lot of deaths in that one too.
That was really sad, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't even go in. They went to the door, they looked, and they saw the shooter walking away from them. He wasn't even looking at him. They saw the shooter walking away down a hallway, and they didn't even shoot him or anything. They saw his gun up. He didn't even have his gun like this. He had his gun up in the air, and it was like a machine gun. So they knew what was going on there. Did you notice how as soon as I said Arturo, he laughed?
Yeah. He's like, oh, cut red-handed.
First comment he makes in this whole day. So he's
it's like a second or third comment, but yeah, he hasn't commented much. He hasn't commented much. He's been busy with the HD stuff, the XYZ stuff.
But yeah, I mean, if that's what we can expect, because I know cops here in Denver, they're great, But I mean, like, if we're not gonna, if you're gonna police and not be willing to go into a high school to help out the kids, you have no right being a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just, I mean, that's why a lot of people aren't cops. You need to be a cop. You need to be willing to get into this. And it's going to happen a lot, and probably a lot more and more and more. I don't think we're going to see a reduction in school shootings. You know, I don't think I don't think gun control issues, not to get into that part of it, and it's not political, but I don't think that's the solution, because you're never going to win the gunfight in this country. The gun owners are always going to win.
Yeah.
Because they have the right as it stands. You're not going to overturn that. And if you do, what are you going to do? Go collect their guns? I dare you to go try and collect guns from gun owners.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck. Exactly. Good luck with that, because they will go down shooting. And I'm not saying that they're all like on a death wish, but they know that that's their right to have it. So good luck collecting their guns.
I mean, it's literally not an amendment. It's like it's embedded in this country's DNA. It's just a part of who we are as Americans.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I and that's, and Carrie just mentioned mental health. I think a lot of mental health plays into this too. I think all of us suffered some mental health. And if you
Arthur was just asking for it. I did not want to get into that. That's a whole can of worms. But yeah, as we get into the final,
I think there should be one or two secret shopper type teachers.
Yeah.
That are like able to go, okay, let me out in the hallway, shut this door behind me, and and just take these kids out, because enough, dude, we don't need 17-year-olds walking down hallways shooting 39 kids.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. I think we have a huge mental health problem in this country that's not being addressed, or at least it's not being addressed as it should. But yeah, Steve, as we get into the final few minutes of the chat, by the way, if you guys have any questions for me and Steve, I know this chat or this stream kind of went left with the Rona and guns and stuff like that. But if you have any questions about,
but it's all relative.
It is for sure. If you guys have any questions about, for me and Steve, let us know in the live chat as we wrap up. But Steve, do you have any closing thoughts?
I think that the biggest thing that needs to happen is maybe some more smiling, maybe some more community interaction. Even just, guys, I don't know if maybe you didn't do this before, do it now. Maybe I was subject to this a little bit, but if you're getting coffee somewhere and somebody's behind you and you look at them, don't just stare at them, smile at them. Just, hey, how you doing? Just throw out something, because honestly, I think that that's a big step, is getting back to community. And I don't think we have it right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, I think we've lost our way, our touch with, just being humans, being friendly. It was already kind of, going that way before the pandemic. Once the, pandemic started, I think it just kind of, raised to a whole nother level. But yeah, I hate the fact that, a lot of times politicians, but also a lot of people, or when politics get involved, when it comes to the job market, people are always like, or people most of the time they're being as lazy or they don't want to work. But in reality, I do think that a small percentage of people are taking advantage of whatever government aid there is left or whatever credit cards they have. But I think for the most part, it's a mental health thing, and I think a lot of people are still genuinely scared. They're like, no, I don't want to go to work. They view it as going to work as a matter of life or death, with with the virus still being there. So I definitely think it's a mental health issue for sure, and I think we need more resources towards mental health instead of just labeling everyone as lazy, because that's just making it a lot worse. But thanks for taking the time to have this conversation with me, Steve. Where can people find you on the internet, on the socials?
Yeah, you can go to uberliftdrivers.com and find all the links to the socials. And by the way, uberliftdrivers.com is not limited to rideshare. It actually covers everything. So you can get news on independent contractorship, on delivery.
Breaking news over there. Breaking news.
Yeah. No, but it's definitely not rideshare related. You'll see some rideshare stories, but if you go there, you'll be surprised how much of it isn't rideshare. So, but you can catch the podcast from there or on any podcatcher, or you can go to ridesharerodeo.com. But I've been trying to send people just to the website, uberliftdrivers.com, and then you can find all the socials, and primarily for all of the YouTubers, Rideshare Rodeo on YouTube. So
yeah, definitely check out Steve's channel if you haven't already. Really good source, for news when it comes to, the gig economy. And, Steve, we've known each other for about a year and a half, but he's just a really good dude, man. He's always helping people out, and he's really helped me out, in terms of, growing on YouTube. And he's just an awesome guy to talk to, and I'm definitely looking forward to meeting him, Tony, and everyone else in a couple weeks. But thanks again, Steve. Appreciate you stopping by. Thanks to everyone who watched, and thanks for all the Karen comments and all the political comments in the chat. And that's pretty much it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.